Okay, we should be live. This should be episode 27, Monty, of Summoning Insight. Different border, different home, different Thorin. Well, maybe not, but sort of different a little bit. We'll see how it goes. I won't hype it up at all. Now, before I introduce everything here, actually, I'll just introduce it. There's no guest, so it's just me and you. So I'm Thorin. I work for, well, I don't really. No one knows where I work. I do work. That's all we know. I'm sort of like Banksy. I just do work. Some people get to see it, but no one really knows who I am or what my purposes are, my agenda and all that stuff.
Except you're a lot more attention-seeking than Banksy is.
Apparently, yeah. I don't know about that. I just try and do what I can, Monty. So you're my co-host, obviously, Monte Cristo. You still work for the same person, right? You still work for OnGameNet?
Well, my contract expires soon, so, hopefully next year I'll work for OnGameNet. I'm not trying to create anything.
No.
I probably will work for OnGameNet next year. It's just not a totally done deal.
If you see this episode, like within a couple of days, GPL, just get that money out and just ship some of that long paper over, and who knows?
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right. LPL, GPL. I haven't signed a contract yet, so
until he signs on that dotted line, there's nothing official. So anyway, to start the show off, Monty, I thought we'd actually reference the past. I mean, we never do that on this show, right? Just bring the past in and things. So actually, I often, believe it or not, people won't believe this. People think this show's like scripted, which is like a laughable concept, right? But obviously, I just make up a lot of the shit I say on the spot, and I don't really put that much thought into it. I just say it, and if it's funny,
it shows. It shows.
In many ways, that just shows how I'm carrying this show, just like impromptu, stream of consciousness. Okay, fair enough. So, but actually, whenever I do those intros, I actually never think those up. Like, I never think up like a diss for someone. I just think up something funny on the spot to like break the ice and bring them in. So on the beginning of the episode, the last one, episode 26, we had Freeze on. And since the famous stereotype with Freeze is like, oh, there's the Freeze curse. And, if you're like Mithy and Nuke Duck and those guys, like even if your career's going really well, if you play with Freeze, like you're fucked. Like at that point, like someone's going to leave the team, someone's going to get banned, you're not going to get else. Like the curse always gets you, right? You can never survive if you're with Freeze. So as a joke, I opened the show by saying like, oh, I guess like after this show, I'll probably be fired from On Gamers. Like I won't be able to work there anymore. Like I won't even be able to work in LCS. Like I'll have to do a talk show about like Challenge League or something. I obviously said it as a joke, but you know what? You never taunt the spirits, Monty. I thought I was like a materialist or something, but I've learned a great deal of respect for like the spirit world and like other ethereal forces. So I taunted them, Monty. I danced on the Indian burial ground and I got my just desserts. I was fired as a result. It wasn't because of anything I did, by the way. It was because of the Freeze curse. Let's stay on track here, guys. It was all Freeze's fault, essentially. That's why. And so... Anyway, the show's going to be identical. I just thought I'd open with that. The Freeze curse got me, so I now know how Mithy feels. I now know how Nuke... Well, I already did in many senses, because let's face it, we have similar problems in life, similar kind of things weighing us down. But we're great guys, that's what I'm trying to say. So let's start the show anyway. This should be episode 28 of Summoning Insight. The second one of our, new era where we're free. Like that movie, 12 Years as a Slave. Like we're no longer slaves, Monty. Now we've broken free. We're actually our own man. We own ourselves.
I thought it was more like Duncan Unchained.
Well, similar concept.
If we're gonna just compare more recent movies that deal with the topic of slavery, I would have thought that Django Unchained was the much better metaphor for this show.
Well, I'll just to put everyone's heart at rest, I'm not going to go back and kill everyone who works on Games Money. That's not my plan. No matter how many times you tell people it is. If they happened to die and their place was burned down, that wouldn't be anything to do with me. I'm just trying to live my own life and enjoy it. So our guest, I'll start the same way I normally do. So I'm Thorin. Work for myself now, so if anything on this show offends you or upsets you, or maybe you feel overly sensitive about it, then here's what you can do. Just get any piece of paper that's in front of you, cigarette packet maybe, an old receipt from a shop. Write down what offends you and what you'd like done about it, and then just put it into the nearest dustbin near you, and it gets to me. Okay, it's sort of if you put a piece of mail in the Royal Mail and you put there's a certain thing you can write on it where even if it doesn't have a stamp, it's they legally have to deliver it to the government or something. It's like that. Someone will find it in that dustbin and it'll get to me. and I'm my own boss, and so I'll probably like really think about whether I can represent my own business in this way in this era, and I'll probably fire myself. So just don't worry, guys. It's still the same system's still in place. It's nothing to worry about. Okay, so going forwards, we've got Monte Cristo here is my co-host. Used to coach CLG. Oh wait, I forgot we're not supposed to talk about that. He doesn't coach CLG. He never coached CLG. That's a
imposter.
That's in fact, actually, you never did, Monty, and it's something that nobody can deny. And yeah. Anyway, all the epic memes we're getting into already. So yeah, he's a commentator for OGN, whatever is in fact left of that. It feels like it's a post-apocalyptic wasteland.
I don't even know what I'm commentating anymore.
Or when you're doing it, it's like at some point next year, we believe there's no... for real, I'm usually used to this exact period of time is when like OGN Winter's starting and I'm getting back into things or the qualifiers. I'm like, okay, what about next season? But it's going to be a few months before we have any OGN.
No, we're going to have qualifiers next week.
Okay. And when does the actual league start?
We have to figure out the other two teams. There's going to be a big open bracket at Yongsan on Monday and Tuesday. And then next Saturday and Sunday, I'm going to be in Busan at G-Star, the big video game thing. We're going to be casting from the same place that the World Quarterfinals took place at, that same theater, to determine who are going to be the other two teams in the new season of Champions.
The World Quarterfinals? You mean that where that scrim between TSM and Samsung White was broadcast
That's
accidentally
right.
on air?
That's right.
I don't know anything about that, Monty. I don't remember that day vividly. It didn't have any implications on the rest of my career or anything. Okay, anyway, and moving on. So Monte Cristo's my co-host here. Now, our guest this week, I feel like, there's a famous saying, actually, Monty, that Rome falls 8 times a day. You just have to know, where to look for it. And it's sort of it's a bit like Joyce with Ulysses, it's the notion that time and history is fractal in a way. So in a way, the fall of the Roman Empire is kind of like the breakup of a marriage or a work relationship falling apart, and these things have a levels that they occur on, that ripple across time and have different impacts and effects. So I feel like a lot of patterns actually do repeat. Some players in one team they're very good at this one thing here, and they join another team and you see the same thing. So for example, N-rated clearly has had some sort of strategical impact on all his teams, and they've all gotten better in that sense, and they've had a better cohesive unit. So I feel as though the way this show is going to go today is that we'll start out and people won't expect much from us. They'll look at the names on the bill here and they'll be like, I've never really heard of that guy. I sort of vaguely know who he is, so they won't expect much. But then eventually, they'll get to know him, and just his natural personality, I believe, will start to shine through, and suddenly the show will become all about him. And we'll have to seed everything that we wanted, all our hopes and dreams. And the only way this show will be able to succeed, Monty, is if we put it all onto him. He has to do everything in this show if it's going to succeed. And then when it doesn't succeed, Monty, it will be our fault because we didn't work as hard as him, we're not as dedicated as him, and quite frankly, he deserves to be on a better show. So he's gonna leave this show and he's gonna be on First Blood next week. And then once that happens, I think you can see where I'm going with the joke there. So our guest is Forgiven, spelt with a 1, showing how edgy he is and that he's down with the kids and that he's possibly a hacker. In fact, perhaps, I don't know. So how you doing, Forgiven? It's episode 29 of Summoning Insight. And for this episode, I realized immediately, the video's being fired up, Monty. People immediately, they're sort of, their hearts sunk a bit because they're like, there's 2 boxes, no guests, no famous person, no controversy from outside normal sources, But now that they've settled in, now the expectation level's gone down, I'll drop a bit of a bomb on people, which is that actually we're going to double up this time because of our schedules to get back to our old kind of a schedule of when we used to release. We're going to have this episode, but we're going to have an episode quite soon as well after, only a few days later. So as a result, we don't have to get into everything here. We don't have to have a guest to go into a million things about the next 5 weeks and the next month because we will have another episode soon. So I thought we would do this one anyway because why not do one when we have time free, But on this episode, we'll go into, this will be more of a Thorin designed episode. I know what you're thinking, isn't that every episode? But no, what I mean is we can talk about some more hypotheticals, or we can talk about some more abstract parts of the scene. It doesn't have to all just be the minutiae of the day-to-day, the mundanity of existence, Monty. I know how you despise the nihilistic glib quality to the life that has been taken on by modern society. I was reading your AMA, you know.
Did you like that? Did you like that quote? Was that your favorite part?
It was.
That
was my favorite part.
I thought you liked the part of the demonic possession of you.
See, here's the thing, Monty. I actually agree with that. That's how I think of myself. I think of
know.
Thorin as sort of like a demonic entity that I allowed to possess me. And here's the problem, Monty, is that I can't just banish him completely because he's brought me this wealth. He's brought me this success. He's got this magnetic quality to him that I actually, as a person, don't really have. I actually can be quite a boring guy in some senses. You know, I'm just into the shit I'm into. But the problem is, it's like to allow him agency in this world. To give me those things also allows him sometimes to go a bit wild and to do some crazy shit, you know. And so unfortunately, those elements, all of a sudden, I just wake up after the show. I'm face down on the ground. I'm in sort of like a chalk circle on the ground. There are markings like on my wrist, and then I wake up and I'm like, oh, what happened? Oh, it must have been someone inside. And I think, oh, it's okay then. And I say the banishing words, you know. I do the dust around the circle. I go and sit down at the computer, and then I think to myself, oh well, the episode's in the can anyway. It says his is recorded, so I'm sure everything's fine. Now I load up Twitter, and it's like, you know, there's just an onslaught of people. How could you say that? Oh, you're Satan. And it's like, no, it wasn't me, guys. It wasn't me. You know. It's unfair.
How do we get rid of this? Is there some sort of esports church we can go to in order to exercise it forever?
No, the thing is, like all. Listen, Monty, anyone who knows about how the spirit world works knows that actually these forces aren't evil, Monty. They're not actually like demons, or they're not like evil in the sense of like the Judeo-Christian mindset. Okay, the problem with these things is that, like anything in life and nature, okay, they have like their realm within which if you work with them in a certain way, they could be beneficial, you know, like a bee can sting you, or it can make honey and you can get the honey and you can not get stung by it, you can use the honey, okay? So you got to know how to use these things. So in a lot of these traditions, okay, the way that you placate these spirits and get them to work on your behalf is you have to give them offerings. Now listen, people are going to think of something really sinister, you know, like a horror movie, like killing a young woman or something. That's not what I'm saying we have to do at all here. Sometimes we can just have offerings of, like, you know, once you give the spirit a chance to have agency in the world, to express itself, sometimes that alone's enough. You know, it wants to like interact with the human world, it wants to be able to change things and play a part, and it wants to have gratitude for doing so. But occasionally, if things get out of control, a way that you can actually sate it is just by blood sacrifice, money. So if a team like TSM is to get brutally slaughtered in the way that they were by Samsung White, then that will actually like placate the demon with a blood offering for a while, you know.
I don't think it did. I think you're absolutely wrong. I think that it's more like a shark that comes there when there's blood in the water, because that's what actually happened, right?
Okay. I don't know. But I have to say, Monty, that after that second game in that series, I was like euphoric at that point. I'd like ascended to another plane. Like, yeah, it was a beautiful. I can't lie. It was wonderful. And by the way, not just wonderful just because TSM were getting bashed in. That was actually a side point. But also just because it was actually just insane to see the best team destroying any other top team like that. That alone was insane.
It was rather insane. So, yeah, I mean, I look forward. What other offerings can you give it? Can you offer esports articles? Is that how it works?
Well, I mean, there's also...
If you dedicate esports articles to it?
There's also, the thing is, the demon understands like the concept of power, and it understands like agency and spirit in other beings, okay? So another way that you can placate gods, okay, is if you give them sort of attention over other god forms, because then they get to be like, oh, I'm still part of the world again, people haven't forgotten about me. So one of the other ways that actually you can handle this, Monty, is if someone like, for example, Impact... Say everyone says that Impact is the best. This is a hypothetical, obviously. Say everyone was to say that he was the best top laner, but then he just fell off real hard and he couldn't even play any of that. And he was trying to be a carry top laner, but it just didn't work. And he was getting his head smashed in. Meanwhile, Flame and Shy were still just chilling, doing what they do. Then that makes everything right in the world again. Okay, so for a while, you know, that allows things to continue the way they should, you know.
So the key is that is based in Lord Flame's performance compared to everybody else.
To a degree, yeah. I feel like he sets the tone for the sort of world that we're living in, you know. We're living in the flame current. As long as that has power in the world, then I can rest easy, you know. But then when I feel that power waning, that's when I become a violent god, you know. That's when I become like like corn out of Warhammer or something, you know, like then I need sacrifices and bloodletting, and people are gonna have to die at that point, buddy. Until Flame is back in the OGN finals.
This conversation.
Okay.
I also want to know: does the demon have a name, or is it one of those anonymous demons? That,
Well, no.
you know, that you can't. Can you even say the name with a human tongue?
I always just thought of it as Thorin, you know. I thought like when I get into that mind state, I get worked up into a thing. So I think actually it's perfect that my Twitter name is like Thorin with 3 O's, because it makes it seem like sort of a demonic, like goetic howl or something, you know, like. No one can even pronounce that properly, Monty, because everyone has to just say Thorin, because that's how we would say it. But actually, it has sort of like an elongated quality to it, which almost seems to shift time and space around you, and you feel a crackling electricity in the background. A baby cries out as the name is called, you know, and suddenly the night is rent with darkness, and the moon. Yeah, you can see where I'm going with this.
I don't think anybody understood what we just talked about right there, except for us.
But in many ways, I feel like when you do this show, Monty, I mean, it's called Summoning Insight. I feel like in many ways, you're like a necromancer, like reaching out to the spirit world, yeah.
Okay.
That's why we have to do it on Skype. Have you never noticed, Monty? Even when we were in Korea, we never did it from the same room. It's because actually, I look like the guy Duncan Shields, but actually, I don't exist like that. You know, you can only see me if you've done the correct like initial rituals and you've summoned, you've evoked the correct force. You know. Anyway, this has lasted way too long, dude. For anyone, so let's actually talk about some League of Legends. Hey, you guys. Just wanted to do a short video to let you know like what's going on and. To like speak. Okay, wait a minute. Let me start again. People have questions, and like I want to answer them. And sometimes when you answer a question, like the question and the answer like merge into themselves, and they get lost. And then you go around, and then like in short, like answering questions is like one's way of answering a question. So no, anyway, that's my little intro there. I'm Thorin. That's not how I start the show normally. So I work for myself. Sounds sad to say that now, Monty. I used to work for someone. I used to be someone. Now I just work for myself. I'm busking. This is virtual busking. I'm like, please, Governor, could I have some coppers for my performance? That's kind of what I'm doing here. So I host Summoning Insight. That's all I do now. That's what I'm reduced to, Monty. That used to be some side shit. Now that's my main shit. I host Summoning Insight. In fact, everyone on this show used to, at one point, you know, be associated with bigger names, better times. But we're all hard on our luck. We're doing the best we can. We're grafting away. So my regular co-host, you know, this is also the main shit he does. He does this, and then like every now and then he does like some amateur league in Korea or something that no one really watches because it's not as good and they don't have good personalities and speak English. So Monte Cristo is my host. How you doing, Monty?
Great. You know, I'm sad not to be affiliated with CLG any longer, you know, but
I know. In many ways,
I scraped by.
I feel like your reputation was only aided by being the coach of CLG. I think it brought you a lot of great things. And actually now, if anything, you're sort of a laughingstock now that you're not with CLG. Okay, well, that one died. So continue on. So my opening, I hate to explain jokes, was an homage to the wonderful work in the field of insomnia curing that my guest here has done with his regular vlog series. They're free. He just wants to help people out, you know. And they actually do contain information. The trick with them is they actually do contain lots of information about League of Legends and League itself. They're like the scene. But the trick is like, how long can you stay awake into one of those videos, you know? Because they just go to this level where he's got a very soothing voice. And his approach, he's not a very aggressive guy. He talks around subjects. He gradually gets to them. You know, he brings them in slowly. You're like one of those like French art directors who likes to let a movie really unfold and let the subtleties come out and have a real genuine performance. Don't demand that someone hits certain marks and lines. Like you want to capture the real thing. That's how I feel like special. So how you doing? Okay, this should be episode 31. We've reached that difficult point in life where you passed 30, you know, the joys of youth have gone, they've faded away, and now you're having to face the cold, hard reality that you're on your own in life. There's no one supporting you anymore, Rip Torn Gamers. Now you just have to get your own, you have to get real friends. You can't hang around with people from school anymore. You have to realize that this girlfriend you've got is probably the best you're going to get. So you got to cling on to her and just make a relationship. So I'm glad you're with me still, Monty. I love you. I'm Thorin. I'm the host of this show. in some senses the star, but I don't like to say it like that. I like to make other people the star. I like to bring other people into my world, set up the platform where they can become famous. So I've got a few like little lesser known people in the community here. I'm gonna try and boost their fame, you know. So see their Twitters down there, just follow them. They need a few followers. If anything, a few of my followers can leave and follow them if it works like that. I don't know how it works. So my regular co-host here, actually, it's ironic that I was speaking about like Monty as if he was sort of my long-term girlfriend who I'm stuck with, who we're in our 30s, you know, we're in that difficult phase where we have to commit to each other, because with that jumper that Monty's wearing there, he looks very much like the sort of thing that girls wear when it's like a day off, you know, they've got a cup of cocoa, they're inside watching some films, they've got a nice comfy jumper on, the dog's with them. So how you doing, Monty?
I'm doing great, you know, and as far as our relationship goes, I'm still like, I'm coming to terms and hoping that in our 30s that you mellow out a little bit and you can get over some of your youthful anger issues that, you know, sometimes cause me some public embarrassment. So
it used to be funny when we were younger, Monty, but now it's just become a bit tragic. And now you're just hoping, like all women, you're hoping that eventually, once I'm broken by life, then you can just change me, you know, and mold me to whatever you want me to be. And eventually, one day, maybe I will just be like Doa. But until then, I'm going to have to keep being me for now, Monty. So, and by the way, Monty also, they're going to wonder who you are, Monty, because no one watches Korean League of Legends, okay? So,
and
they
definitely no one will watch it now that we don't have any players.
And also, apparently, no one was watching Worlds either. So this guy, Monte Cristo, like, he sometimes does Worlds. If you can ever, like, unlock your eyes from Doublelift, he's, like, sort of usually to the right of him a bit, scolding him, mentioning how they failed together in that team that was their hopes and dreams. And also, Monty's also, I'd like to call him a caster, and he likes to always mention, if you ever watch the show, guys, remember how he always mentions, like, he doesn't say, like, oh, I'm an OGN employee. He always says, like, yeah, I'm a freelance caster who's available for all gigs and birthday parties and bar mitzvahs, because he secretly wants other people to hear the show and then hire him. And so that might be happening, but I can't reveal where, guys. It's sort of like the Monty's quantum casting uncertainty principle, where even he doesn't know if he's casting an event right until the very minute before. So maybe he'll find out on the day that he's cast. I don't know. How you doing, Monty?
I'm doing great. Sometimes I don't even know where the continent I'm going to be casting in is either. But so I can exist in two places at the same time.
Well, actually, I just saw a great hype video for the GPL, so I think you should go there. I think they're an up-and-coming league. I think they've got a lot going for them. Also, by the way, jokes aside, I actually think that people made a good point where, you know, that GPL teaser looked terrible. Everyone said some stuff, right? Like, oh, if this had been Doublelift and those other players just doing the exact same thing, people probably would have hyped it. And I have to admit, they're probably right. You can do almost anything in like one of those Riot videos, and people are like, oh my god, did you see it? It's so sick. It's like every superhero movie in the world. There's always that like fake leak of like the costume like a month before, and someone's like, oh my god, have you seen that Batman outfit? It looks amazing. No one's ever been like, oh, that looks shit.
Or that Star Wars trailer that just came out.
Oh yeah, that looks pretty good.
That had
that's amazing.
Nothing in it.
Dude, it had Star Wars in it.
It had a black guy in it. Listen, we've come a long way. It's the 70s, Star Wars started in. You're only allowed to be a jive-talking, street hustler guy. Even in the Star Wars universe, that's the only sort of black guy you could be, sort of like that guy out of Shaft or something, that guy who's all on the street. That's all you could be in Star Wars. But we've come so far, you can now be a stormtrooper and essentially you can be evil and be black. That's what we've learned from Star Wars now. Crepo's actually already, I can see it in the back of his eyes. He's like, was it a mistake coming on this show? Could this affect my career negatively? Yeah, welcome to Sony Insight. So my guest this week, though, I like to give everyone I consider myself the historian of esports, Crepo. So I like to give people a bit of actual context so they understand like where a person's coming from and what they've done in his career. So some people like to think of Crepo as, you know, like when a strongman lifts like a huge weight above his head, and sometimes the weight can look enormous on both sides of the bar. And the incredible part isn't just the man lifting; it's that there has to be the weight there. Because if the weight's there and we know how heavy that weight is, then we realize what a strong man he must be. And so part of the reason I've always had so much respect for Froggen as a player is I saw like these times when he could just, like superhuman strength, he could just lift, it felt like 4 teammates above his, and I've looked at him in real life, he's a really skinny guy, like, but I know he's very dedicated, and it felt like he could do anything, you know. He was like my Lord and Savior. I'm sure he was your Lord and Savior as well, you know. So you used to play with him in CLG. People actually don't know this, and I hope I'm not really betraying like a confidence here of what you once told me, but I always used to wonder like how that bot lane worked, you know, with Yellow Pete. And I remember you actually told me that you kind of felt guilty because Yellow Pete was actually this really highly mechanically skilled AD carry who just wanted to make plays. He just wanted to win lane. In fact, his motto used to be, let's smash these guys hard. We're going to win this lane all day long. And you used to tell him, you were kind of like the Nif of the team, you know. You were like, no, let's play conservatively. Like, let's just go for CS only. Like, don't trade. Like, don't go for a trade unless it's 100%. Like, come on, I come from Belgium. And in Belgium, it's all about efficiency. And we're not about that crazy stuff, you know. It used to go something like that, right, Cravo?
That pretty much sums it up, yeah.
Okay, this should be episode 32 of Summoning Insight. Normally, I like to start off with like a joke. But actually today, it's going to start off on a little bit of a somber note. Like, we have to recognize when terrible things have happened in esports. And so I'd like us all to just take a moment to acknowledge, like, CLG is actually a friend of the show. They're kind of family to us. And recently they lost 10,000 of their friends in a horrific incident that people are going to have a lot of bad memories about and regrets over till the end. You know, could I have done more? Should I have done things differently? You know, there'll be a lot of feelings swirling around. And all I want to say is that in this time of great distress, like, I'm there for you, Hotshot, and I'd like to just pledge my solidarity to CLG as an organization, unless that in any way implicates me in what they've done, in which case I don't know anything about CLG. I wasn't involved with it whatsoever. I thought Skara should be the... No, I've maybe said too much already. Please don't find me, Nick Allen, although you can't really because I don't work for you. Maybe. And so we'll now start the show after that very somber note there.
Truly tragic.
Yeah, I mean, who could have seen it coming? I've actually never heard of an incident in esports like that before. I know all other organizations, you know, directly contact the other organization and say, like, we officially have interest in a player. Could we now speak to the player and find out if he'd like to join? Everything else is always done by the book, much like the play of Bjergsen in IEM tournaments. So in other news, we'll start the episode now on those notes. Oh, the puns, Monty.
That was nice. You slipped that one right in there at the end.
So we'll start the episode now. Speaking of which, okay, yeah, it is quite a sad week because of our loss there. But it's also a very good week because I enjoyed watching America's Best Team TSM play some games recently. And, you know, my spirits feel just buoyed up, Monty. I don't know why. I feel like there's a new spring in my step. I feel joy in the world. Bluebirds are tweeting outside my window. So I'm Thorin. I'm the host of Summoning Insight. Yeah, that's about it. That's about all I do. Host Summoning Insight. Everything else is just a side thing to that. My regular co-host here, Monte Cristo, was actually at IEM. This was his first IEM event, and you know, it was his first IEM. I hope they went easy on him. You know, they didn't mistreat him when they were breaking him in, much like Bjergsen, as I was referencing him before. Enough about that anyway, though. We'll get to that later in the episode. You know, you gotta.
It was the best ever. Please hire me again, IEM.
Okay, sure. That sounded very, very plausible there, Monty. That sounded almost as good as whenever I watch you do a Riot-related broadcast, and then someone, I won't say who, one of the hosts is always talking to you and like throwing jokes your way, and you do your like fake stage smile, and I know the difference between that and your real smile, and it's sort of like, yeah, that's great. Now over to you, Susanna, with the news. It's like that sort of like a broadcast smile. You have one, Monty, and every time it comes out, I just laugh and I see it coming. But everyone else is like, wow, he's just a model professional. He's having such fun. The banter, the camaraderie is so good on this show. So our guest this week, since we're going to have to talk about TSM versus Unicorns of Love, Monty, I knew that like potentially there might be some humor involved. We might have to criticize TSM. And so history has taught me, because if anything, Monty, I learn from my mistakes. I don't like to make the same mistake twice. And so I know that people get upset when we criticize TSM. So I thought to myself, in that case, I need a guest that we can have on the episode who could potentially be hated and disliked more than us. And he can sort of be like, you know, when you're in like an F-22 fighter jet and like someone gets missile lock on you, like a MiG, a Russian MiG, and they fire a rocket, what you do is you actually have flak. You press flak and it releases these little sort of jettisons, these little particles of metal. And the idea is the heat-seeking missile will go onto that, which is near you, but it won't be actually in your craft, okay? And that will blow up the missile, the heat-homing missile, rather than the jet, because you don't want the jet to blow up. We're inside the jet. You're my co-pilot here. We just want the flak to blow up. So with that said, our guest is the coach of Meet Your Makers, formerly Super Hot Crew, LS. Hello. Okay, this should be episode 33 of Summoning Insight. I'm Thorin. I work for myself. I don't even really work in esports now. Now I'm just sort of like that character out of the movie Network who just rants at the television, but I just do it on YouTube about different esports topics, and then people like it because it's kind of edgy, and they're like, oh yeah, he speaks to like the revolutionary in me, but then just like me, they go about their normal life in esports like a little bitch who just has to do everything that they're told by the bigger organizations. And you can be frustrated, you can feel like you want a backlash, but ultimately you still turn up on Reddit, you still do all that shit, and we all have to give in to the man eventually. We're all broken on the wheel here. So my co-host, as usual, is Monte Cristo, who you haven't seen for a while, because apparently, I don't know, in America, they still believe in God or something, so they have like holidays and stuff, and like they celebrate these things. And Monty is actually you don't know this because he gives off this persona of this like cool, calm, collected sort of atheist, fundamentalist materialist, but actually he's a very religious man. He's quite devout, and he likes to go home to pay his respects. Isn't this true, Monty?
No, I'm an atheist.
Okay. And then our guest this week, some of you the 1% of you who were around before season 4 are probably thinking like, hey, I don't know who that is, but is he related to that fat guy who used to do like the translations in OGN and stuff and in StarCraft 2? He is. He's sort of related to him in as much as he is him. Because what happened was, Chobra used to just be like a general peon for OGN and just do whatever they wanted. And he was just like getting water. And I think it was sort of like their way of getting back at the West. It's like they had sort of a proxy of the West in this like fake Korean that comes from America, and they would just make him do whatever they want, and they would just inflict upon him these punishments for what the West has done to them, like losing the Korean War and all that sort of stuff. And then eventually he got that fat esports money, okay, and he got into health. Korea actually broke him. He got assimilated. He worked on his appearance. Now he's got his own job even. Now he just works in Korean all the time or something like that. Or do you do like Hearthstone in English or something? What do you do at the moment, Will? Okay, this should be Summoning Insight, episode 34. I'm Thorin. I'm back again. You can't get rid of me. At this point, I'm actually untouchable because my plan is by never making money, then it's actually impossible for me to be fired and like that money to be a risk in any way. That's my new secret. Okay, I'm like going through the bottom, and eventually I'm going to come out the top. And in a world where we move beyond money, like eventually Monty, this fiat currency of money will actually be worth nothing. It will just be paper, and eventually we'll move into a post-apocalyptic world where like oil and like roving bands of thugs, much like like Sons of Anarchy or something, will be what it's all about. So instead, I'm actually trying to just like learn like jujitsu and how to make a compass out of like a leaf and a magnetized paper clip or something. I can't even remember where I got that from. Some Boy Scouts or something. And so I'm Thorin, host of Summoning Insight here, and my co-host as usual, Monte Cristo, who for the moment, at least let me just check, at the moment you are still on the Riot broadcast for LCK, right? You are still on.
That's right. LCK, the greatest acronym to ever exist.
I couldn't tell because you see what happens is Riot, their method, I've actually figured out a theory for you guys. The reason why Riot hates Gambit, and they always used to like fuck with Gambit and like make members leave Gambit and always have visa problems, is because Riot wanted for themselves that slogan that, once you give them a finger, they take the whole arm. So that's like their approach to taking over broadcasting money. They say like, no, we're just going to take over it in name. But then initially they start like removing people, for the good of the realm and all that. Because, Riot's very much like Varus in many ways, or Littlefinger, depending on who you are on this show. Anyway, and so they gradually remove people, and eventually, next thing you know, someone's dead at a wedding, everything's just gone to shit, and you just, everyone's just screaming. Monty's looking off to the side screaming as my eyes are just, I'm just ruining, I'm not even going to say what show that's from actually, so if you don't know, just pretend it wasn't about any show, because I've just ruined about like 4 seasons or so. Anyway, so my co-host here is Monty, who proudly bears the Riot brand and LCK, 2 of his favorite brands. He represents them. So how are you doing, Monty?
I'm not a representative of Riot Games.
I'm going to keep saying you are, though, just for the lols. Okay, so moving on from Riot, Monty, to our guest this week, the third person joining us. Now, you guys maybe used to think like, oh, wait a minute, I think I know him. Like, he's like a Spanish mid laner, and he was like really good in some past seasons, and he used to be good on Oriana. And then, now he's like left his team, and he's decided he's going to start his own brand and work up from the bottom, and he's going to qualify through Challenger. That's right, it's Ocelot. Okay, this should be Summoning Insight, episode 35. And I'm Thorin. I don't even need a really good intro this time. Just leave it at that, really. I'm Thorin. That's what all you need to know. If you don't know me now, there's like 34 episodes before. Skip some of the parts of some of them. They're not that good. Some of them were pretty good, though. A lot of good predictions were made. A lot of Lord bets made. A lot of Lord bets lost. Less said about that, the better. My co-host here, Monte Cristo, is actually, if he looks tired now, it's because he's been on an all-night bender, buying champagne for people, buying Cuban cigars, celebrating Tom Brady winning his 4th Super Bowl ring.
God.
Isn't this accurate, Monte Cristo?
No. That was so sad.
Okay.
That was one of the saddest moments in NFL history. One of the worst play calls of all time.
Did it feel like when Wild Turtle hit all those crits in Game 5 against Cloud9? Is that kind of how your soul felt?
I think this was worse. This was much
okay. Well, that's quite a statement right there for fans of LCS. Okay. So our guest for this week, sometimes people's reputations precede them in esports. So all I'm going to say is this is someone who is well known within League of Legends for popularizing the term, the slow push. And I know what you're thinking there, guys. Oh, you're going to have to narrow it down more. What is a slow push and who is that? So his name is Clement Chu. And this should be Summoning Insight, episode 36. And I'm Thorin. I'm wearing a coat here with like a Game of Thrones type fur, which means I'm back in England. I'm back, boys. I already feel like now that I've left Korea, which is a very polite society, it's based on Confucian values like respect for your elders. I can feel like the dark presence. It's sort of like when Luke was on Dagobah in Empire Strikes Back. Like part of why he was there was if you went into that swamp area, that's an area where like the dark elements of the Force held sway. So I feel like back in my room, maybe some of the old Thorin will seep back in here. We'll see as the episode goes on. Now, in light of that, okay, you might be thinking like, oh, prepare for like, some barrages, some volleys from my side. But actually, when your friends are going through troubling times and they've got difficulties in their life, if you're a good friend, you've got to recognize that, and you've got to be delicate with them. You've got to care for them. And so I feel like this episode, I want everyone to be really gentle with Monty, because obviously he's been through a traumatic period this week. Someone who posed as a hairdresser has committed a terrible atrocity to him. They've quite frankly abused his trust, and he's feeling very vulnerable right now. And so we're all going to be here for him. Like we love you, Monty, and we await the day that you actually have a full head of hair again, and you haven't actually been entered into some sort of Borstal program against your will. You haven't.
Thank you.
You weren't actually secretly under some kind of contract to MYM or something, were you?
No, I was not, unfortunately. They tried to coerce me, but I rejected them.
Okay. But you forgot to put on your talk boy out of Home Alone 2 and record the conversation, so they were allowed to give you that haircut. Okay, I see.
Funny story, I actually did have one of those talk boys growing up as a kid.
I bet you did. I bet you recorded your own conversations and made little stage plays with them or something. Did you?
That's how I practiced being a caster when I was young.
Ah, okay. Right.
It was integral.
I can only imagine what those tapes must sound like. But we'll go on to our guest now, because, whenever we present a guest, Monty, usually people think that I'm like a bit harsh. Like I just go in on them, I start like dissing them, etc. But actually, sometimes you don't have to. Sometimes the funniest jokes are when you just say things that are true. So the guest that we're bringing on now is someone that Monty, on a number of occasions, actually overtly suggested should probably be replaced by his friend Crepo, who he thought would be like a better strat calling element. And, he thought just the guy just wasn't that good mechanically, and like it was a downgrade from Yellow Star. And like Monty basically was trying to campaign for Crepo to take that job. Now, listen, I consider myself, if nothing else, a fair, egalitarian sort of person who doesn't have emotions, therefore I'm not blinded by them. So I came to the defense of this guest. I said, no, Crepo, you made that. If you're a strat caller, then you have to take responsibility for trading your whole base for the Baron that time for EG. I think Nif's a good player. So Nif used to be the support of SK Gaming for a long time. Now he's the support of Alliance. I mean Elements. It was Alliance. Now it's Elements. Which element are you again, Nif? You're like
He's water. He's going to
heal people,
fluidly.
you know?
He's going to fluidly dictate the course of this show.
Okay, this is episode 37 of Summoning Insight. I'm Thorin. I've actually got this old coat back. It's come back in the wash now, so I'm bringing back my old look. It's my branding. It's my sort of marketing, Monty. I heard like part of the way that you're supposed to become famous is you have to have like a gimmick. You have to have something that people associate with you. So with you, it's like being really arrogant and like elitist and like no one really being able to emotionally connect with you, not knowing what's going on there behind the steamy visage, you know? That's your gimmick, but my gimmick, I tried being really racist as my gimmick, but then that like wasn't working out for me that well. Like it worked out a couple of times, but then it stopped working for me, you know? So I had to go to a new gimmick, and my new gimmick is like, it's back to just wearing coats and stuff again and being in the cold and living in England. So I'm going to see how that works out for me again for a while.
I thought it was behaving like an obstinate drunken hobo.
Yeah, I'm not drunken that often. Anyway, so
Behaving like one.
so I'm Thorin. I'm the host of this show. Regular co-host here, Monte Cristo. He casts LCK, as he likes to refer to it as. I like to call it OGN Champions because I like keep it real on that. You know, like I'm not into all this marketing shit. You know, I work for Riot, unlike Monty. And he casts LCK, or at least he does some of the time, because some of the time he has to take the week off because actually those silly old Asians, you know, they only haven't got an arbitrarily made their year start on January 1st. In fact, you know what? Thousands of years ago, they didn't even know that it was January 1st. Oh, the fools! That's not the end of the year. That's the beginning. Yeah, so they don't know what they're doing there, but they're still trying to figure it out. And so I believe they actually do use the Western, like Gregorian Julian calendar, but they also stick to their old ways. You know, they're sort of like the people of the North in Game of the Thrones. You know, the old gods still hold some sway there, and so. He casts LCK. How's it going, Monty? You haven't had any LCK for a week, mate.
I had some last night, but that was it.
Okay, you had.
I'm going through withdrawal.
Serving.
It's bad.
In that week, did you come to any special conclusions about like why, how much you've had to completely turn face on your GE Tigers' initial hatred and distaste to now riding the bandwagon? Like basically, most bandwagons, Monty, I'll give you credit. You usually start the bandwagon. You're usually there with the conductor, like, right, our first stop will be in 17 minutes and we better hit it on time. Get your tickets ready. This time, like the train was already going. You had to sort of drive up beside it, sort of. Like on a horse and jump on in the back carriage and work your way through.
It was more of like a Wild West train robbery. I was definitely on a horse.
You had to get onto the back carriage though and battle your way through with guns. And now you're near the front. Listen, I'll give you credit. Now you're fully on board with this one. You're going to take it to Worlds or bust. But you weren't on board initially. So have you come to any special conclusions over the week that we had off? Has anything changed?
Really. Nah.
No. Okay. Well, that's a great start to the show. And our guest this week is actually a returning guest. Now, last time we had him on the show, Monty, I like context, you know, that's one of my favourite things in life. So let me set the context for you, okay? When he came on the show last time, his Team Dignitas at the time, was near the top of the NALCS. Yes, it was back in those heady old days into the mists of time. They were top of NALCS. Things were going really well. They'd actually proven Monty's prediction that bringing in Shifter and Zion wouldn't change anything strategically. Conclusively wrong. They were top of NALCS. And I believe they actually went pillar to post and they won that split in one of the most dominating fashions ever seen. They went to Worlds. He had a great performance there. And actually, now we're going to talk about battling for the Season 5 World Championship. Oh, no, wait a second. Actually, the first part of that was accurate, but then I got confused there. So our guest is Crumbs from Dignitas. How's it going? Okay, it's episode 38 of Summoning Insight. I'm Thorin, usual host, freelancer extraordinaire. Man on the grind, hustling out there, the hardest working man in show business. That's how Monty likes to refer to me. That's his pet name for me, actually. He also thinks of me as a young James Brown. Don't know why that is, though. My co-host here is Monte Cristo. He's that guy who, like, you guys get to see, like, on this show, and then, like, sometimes you watch IEMs, and then once a year you watch Worlds, and then you think, oh, that Monty guy's pretty good. I wish he was in LCS. But he's not. He's not, actually. He just does, like, the minor leagues off in Asia somewhere. Speaking of doing the minor leagues off in Asia, our guest this week is Papa Smithy. Now, I know what you're thinking. Papa Smithy. Oh, is that wrestler in the double? No, it's Papa Shango. That's not him.
Good.
Papa Smithy, though.
That's a deep cut. I appreciate it.
He did casting in LPL. Oh, wait a minute. LPL for score? No, that was last year. He did casting like a couple of years back. So he used to do it like in 2013, back when I know we all watched LPL. And now he does LPL again. And you're probably thinking to yourself, that still doesn't ring a bell. Who is that? You know, in every casting combo, okay, it always tends to go like this. This is the way it works in a top level casting like duo. The way it works is you have the one guy who's really charming. He's good looking, perhaps. He just has that likable, down to earth quality where he's that guy who could have been your prom king. You know, he's called the play-by-play caster, and you just love all his calls. You love those little things he inserts there. You know, it's the dinner bell's being rung and they're coming in for the tea fight. You know, all that sort of great work that they do to hype us all up. Because I personally couldn't get invested in watching the best players in the world play a game unless I heard people say kind of like cliched things over the top of it. That's what makes me erect. So in this sort of a duo, they then allow someone else to come in and be a part of the duo. And because like one side of like all the charisma is covered, they allow like a guy to be involved in every casting duo. I'm just teaching Monty about this because he doesn't know about this. They'll allow a guy who actually maybe his personality is actually repugnant. It's actually disgusting in some senses. Maybe even repulsive. Like he actively, as he explains his knowledge and his analytical side of the game, you actually start thinking like, why do they even allow this guy? Oh, that's right. Oh, the play-by-play guy. Oh, I love that guy though. I'm loving it. And then that dynamic, the push and pull, that kind of sexual charisma that they create is what makes you enjoy the cast. You have to have the bad guy, the good guy. You know, it has to work like that. Now, I know in Monty's case it doesn't work like that. Actually, he's got an extremely analytical play-by-play guy, and they fuse very well with their scripted material. And Monty is actually world renowned for his lovable personality. He's, you know, children like him, animals are attracted to him naturally when he goes out to smoke pesticides on his balcony. So we've got one of those color casters I described before, one of those dark creatures that lives in the shade of the glorious light bringer that is the play-by-play caster. It's Papa Smithy from LPL. Hello. Okay, this is episode 39 of Summoning Insight. I'm Thorin, regular host. Don't know about you guys. I've had a great last week. I've just been waking up anytime I felt like it. If I wanted to, I watched a game. If I didn't, you know, I just cruised around the house. I had a nice time, you know. It's that sort of, you know, it's my hibernation period in the year, Monty. It's that time when I have the week off. You know, I've got no requirements. Nobody's asking me to come to events. Like, it's very quiet around the house. Like, nobody's ringing on the phone. I'm just, like, birds are chirping outside. I'm just enjoying myself, watching a bit of esports on the computer there, wherever it may happen to take place in the world. I'm not prejudiced against where esports takes place, Monty. So my regular co-host here, Monte Cristo, he's also having one of the best weeks of his life. Like, everything, the stars have aligned. Like, all of his like closely kept principles and beliefs have been shown to in fact be correct and vindicated. And his entire personality is pretty much impossible to like question or criticize in any way. And anyone who thinks that his identity is based on like the strength of Korean League of Legends isn't in any way like readying up to take shots or watching and preying on your downfall at all. So how's your week been, Monty?
Well, you know, it's been a great week for my haters. They think that they have somehow won some sort of epic victory, but it's okay. You know, MSI is going to restore everything right to the world. So, you know, it's a temporary situation at best.
What I don't understand is, it seems like you don't understand the way things work, Monty. Like, if I ask you which team is going to win in a video game, if you tell me the answer that ends up being wrong, you should have to formally apologize.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right.
That's just natural, right?
I'm also a shit analyst if not 100% of my predictions come true. I've been told.
Hey, Monty, speaking of analysts and predictions, probably the most perfect karma I've ever seen. Friend of the show, Crumbs, said in an interview something along the lines of like that it was like absolutely certain that GE Tigers would win their semi-final.
He gave 50-1 odds to Travis. To be fair, like Travis, even people don't understand what a big upset this was. Travis wouldn't take that bet. He could have bet $1 and gotten 50 back, and he thought it wasn't worth it.
That's what's great
Just
about
saying,
that, though. The fact that this time Crumbs came on the side of the most overwhelming favourite that had every reason to win, and he was wrong. So, if anything, that just shows you that actually what happened, Monty, is I often have this theory. You know the way sometimes when you get off a plane and you're in like a new time zone, and it's a different time zone than the one you were just in before, and it's a different location, and you think to yourself like, well, back in olden days, you know, it used to take like weeks to cross the world in a ship, but suddenly I've gotten here in a few hours. I have this theory that maybe we're being tricked by like aliens who've taken over the world, right? And we're not actually taking planes, Monty. We're just like traveling through dimensions in time machines that just look like planes, okay? It's a great theory, I know, because you've never seen the outside of a plane. You've only been on the inside, okay? Maybe they release some sort of gas that's like hallucinogenic, and then that's why they just keep you seated a lot of the time, and they don't really let you like open doors or whatever. I don't know where I'm going with this analogy, but anyway, the point is that I think that you didn't actually go to Poland in 2015 in our universe. You actually all went through an alternate dimension. And in this alternate dimension, the worst Chinese teams are actually the best teams in the world. And teams from Korea just can't get it together. They don't know when to lane swap. Their laners are inconsistent. You know, they have shit junglers and supports. Like, it's another alternate dimension. You don't know it, but you went there and you didn't notice anything different because you didn't go to like Ellis Island and see that actually the Statue of Liberty is like Joseph Stalin. That's like a statue of Joseph. If you'd have known that, you'd have known that you're in a different alternate timeline. Okay. So anyway, this is a very long introduction already. It's one of my best already, Monty. So I thought to myself, okay, listen, what people don't know is people think because I sometimes give Monty a hard time, or it seems like I get him into trouble sometimes when he's on this show. Actually, I planned all this out, okay? It was all calculated, the whole Summoning Insight experience. It was all what I call le social experiment. So what I was doing with Summoning Insight was, I knew that Monty was this guy where Reddit said he sucked a lot of Korean dick and that he kept saying that SK Telecom was going to win worlds and all this ridiculous stuff, and he had a lot of haters, okay? So I thought to myself, the only way to sort of get Monty to be beloved is to create a greater evil. Like, you remember that the speech where Ronald Reagan said the only way the like superpowers of the Soviets and the Americans could be combined is if there was a greater threat from outer space. That's what I attempted to do. So I thought I'm gonna have to create this obnoxious character who's so extreme and so outrageous in his statements that it will actually draw some of the fire away from Monty. And then as a result, Monty will seem quite reasonable, as you know, he'll seem within modern bounds when he says stuff like Jin Air would go to NALCS and have a perfect season and dominate everyone, or whatever kind of crazy opinions he would normally say. So in that spirit, I realized this week that wasn't even going to work. You know, the old 1-2 double act, it's not going to work, Monty, because people really, they're after you this time. So I thought to myself, right, I've got to get the Rolodex out. There's got to be someone who can help me fix this. And I thought, who was the most unpopular person we ever had as a guest on this show? Not only that, but who made comments about Western players and is known to blow up Chinese players to be much better than they are in a world where the 12th best Chinese team just beat all these others. And I thought, I've got it. I know who to call. And so praise the sun, because Froscorin has made her return to Summoning Insight. How's it going, Froscorin? Okay, this is episode 40 of Summoning Insight. I'm Thorin, your host as usual. Just got finished doing some CSGO. And in CSGO, listen, it's not a big esport, you know. It's not like a really competitive, like top-level worldwide esport like League of Legends. Unfortunately, we have to really like sort of put up with the scraps that we get in CSGO. Like, this last tournament I was at, I was watching a LAN, and it had like the second and third best teams in the world, and they played, you know, they just played a little best of 3 in the group stage, and they played a best of 5 in the final. And I thought to myself, oh God, I hope one day CSGO can get to where League of Legends is, where the height of my excitement is based around watching the 2 best teams in a region play each other every sort of 6 weeks in a best of 1, and then wait and sort of like an aesthete from the Middle Ages or something, Monty, deny myself the pleasure of seeing them more, you know, knowing that in doing so I will be incredibly aroused when the next occasion to watch them play comes. Because that's a little thing that people don't know, okay, Monty? A little interesting thing about the era of like the Middle Ages, the medieval period, when sex was repressed, Monty, is that people think to themselves like, oh, these are people who hate sex, right? They did this because they think it's bad. No, what they realized was sort of this tantric quality, Monty. This is how it came out in the West. They realized that when you repress all sex, since that drive, that energy is so like
it's so present in humans. It just makes it build to an incredible level. And then you can even see like the flash of an ankle of a woman, and you might just blow right there, right? It gets to an incredible level. So what Riot, in their sort of inquisitory phase, have done is create the ultimate release for esports hype money. So yeah, we're on the new episode. I just thought I'd give people that little thing to start with, because sometimes people suggest that maybe my intros don't stick to the facts and aren't short enough. So I thought I'd just give the people what they want, Monty. So I'm the host, Thorin. My co-host here, Monty. How's it going, Monty?
It's great. I thought your analogy was quite hilarious. Good work today.
The only thing is, though, it seems like while I was away doing the CSGO tournament, listen, I've always tried to, in our relationship, try to reassure you, like, listen, I'll always be there for you, like, you're meaningful to me, like, even if I have to see other people sometimes, Monty, don't worry, the show will always be there, we'll always continue Insight on Esports, but I feel like while I was away, you kind of, like when a man goes away on a business trip and the woman's like, no, I'll be fine, you just go out, you have fun, just do your work, and then you come back and like you don't notice at first that she's got a new haircut, and that can like throw everything off, right? Because the whole point, it was a test, Monty. You had to notice when you got back that she's got the new haircut, and that means something, okay? She's looking for some attention, maybe she feels like you're taking her for granted. Well, I got back, Monty, I come on and I come home, I get back to my room, I just sit down back in my chair, and I'm surfing on Reddit, and it's like, I see this like 3-hour Twitch VOD of some of you like commentating over esports games. I'm like, whoa, what's going on here? Some sort of crisis here? Like you're just making up shows off the top of your head? Like you've become a streamer or something? You're chilling out listening to like Future Garage or something? Like what's going on, Monty? Is there something you need to tell me about our relationship?
I'm sorry. I'm gonna have to stop doing our show to become a full-time streamer. I think this is the better way forward.
I know where this is going as well.
For the future.
You've joined the TSM network, haven't you?
More people really like it when I go over LCS VODs rather than we talk about LCS VODs. So I'm gonna have to go solo from now on.
Ah, damn. Okay. Well, I'll see if I can come to terms with that and the fat stacks that you are now getting from streaming. So our guest this week. Now, last week, okay, we had Froscorid on. It was all about China. I hate it, Monty, when people sell out, okay? You get a big show, and the problem with success, Monty, isn't just that, like, you get successful for a certain thing, but once people get success itself becomes, like, the motivating goal, and people start to think, like, how can I be successful? Like, what I was doing before, that had, like, hit and miss success. What you have to do is they start looking into statistics and analytics, and they start looking at demographics and saying, like, what is my core demographic, and what do they want on a show, and trying to design a show around that. And I would never do that, Monty. That disgusts me. Like, I'm about keeping, staying real to yourself. And, this show was designed to be about hardcore analysis, where we watch every big game and we break it down. And yeah, we throw in the odd joke, but mainly it's about, like, people who just know the most about League. So with that said, our guest this week is an Asian, it's a girl, and it's someone that esports fans really like and has a lot of Twitter followers. So yeah, in keeping with all of that, hello, little Susie. Okay, this is episode 41 of Summoning Insight. I'm Thorin, usual host, fully adorned in my gear, got the coat, got the scarf. Back in England, I've even figured out the lighting. Like I'm learning a lot about production stuff here, Monty. Like I actually had a light that was too good before, so it was making everything all whited out. I believe that's called white balance there, Monty. I've done a lot of research on this stuff, so I had to put on a light that instead sort of makes things a bit more coloured. Now you're probably saying, well, there's probably settings you can change, all that sort of thing. Shut the fuck up. I didn't get here by looking things up and learning them. I got here by assuming that I'm right and then maintaining I'm right and sticking with the old ways to the end of all time. I mean, every fan of the show knows that, right? Everyone knows that Froggen and Flame are still the best of their positions. And if you say otherwise, I will concoct an elaborate straw man argument to explain and beat you down till eventually just give up and say that they are. So that's the format of the show. I've kind of let people behind the curtain there, but I do that every now and then. I let them behind the curtain and then I say there was no old man pulling those levers. That's actually just Froggen. So my co-host, as always, is Monty Christian. Now, last episode, I don't want to say I'm psychic. It's more I have like very, very keen intuitive senses, especially one thing in Monty is one of my superpowers is I know when people are made really uncomfortable by me. Like I've learned that. I don't know why, like no experiences of that or anything, but I've just learned to know when some people are slightly uncomfortable around me and something's a bit off. And so I was a bit concerned last episode. I kind of jokingly mentioned, like, maybe this relationship's not going where you thought it was. You're approaching your 30s. Like, it's time maybe you find someone else. Like, you've got to find that other branch to swing to, Monty, before you let go of this branch, the Insight and Esports branch. And so I just kind of said that jokingly, just to like put the feelers out there. And you were like, haha, yeah, that's a good joke. And the next thing I know, like, you literally, like, you're moving like entire series off the channel, and now you're on OGM Plus. And listen, Monty, I want to be on OGM Plus, but I only want to be on OGM Plus to play speed gaming with that girl and possibly say inappropriate things to her in Korean, but get away with it because I'm a foreigner. So I have totally different reasons for it, Monty. You're putting a whole series that used to be our money makers over there on OGM Plus. So if anyone wants to watch that series I'm referring to, Countdown of Monte Cristo, it's now even on episode 1 again. The episodes with me don't even exist. Monty has erased them entirely. Like, he's just burned our old photos of New Year's Eve and stuff. It's gone. He's just started over. So you started your show over, your new life, Monty. Like, we're just hanging on with this show. These are the kids that we have to take. We get a day each week, right?
What can I say? I mean, you can't even afford heating. They pay better than you.
Okay, see, it's always about money, isn't it? At first, women want love, but eventually they want love and money. That's the thing. It's not that they don't want love. They want love, they want money, they want Louis Vuitton, they want to go on holiday to Miami every year. The costs are getting too high. Whereas I can only live in Korea in that incredibly expensive lifestyle every now and then. And I have to come back to the wildlings area of England.
Incredibly expensive Korean lifestyle. Yeah. What?
Hey, let's keep the myth going, Monty. Remember, it's Korea. Esports is accepted there, and it's just the land that's paved with gold. And to even log into Korean solo queue, legend has it raises your skill points at least 50%. Much like Pobelter. Remember, guys, about how Pobelter was doing really well on the Korean ladder and he was dominating? Well, don't worry, he translated that success when he went back home. Shots out to Pobelter there. Now, our guest this week is an interesting example of how there's always a grain of truth to the lie that someone says about you. If someone says something like, that guy's a total asshole, probably, you might not be an asshole, but probably maybe you said something that upset them, that made them feel like they had to hold a grudge against you. So there's probably some grain of truth to it, right? So when he last came on our show, this was when the rehabilitation of Forgiven's image had happened, Monty. Like, forget that toxic guy who everyone said was skilled, but they hated him in spite of it in Copenhagen Wolves. Now he was joining SK. And early on in SK, it was going really well. People were even joking about it. Like, hey, remember all those idiots on Reddit? Like, talking about themselves, but indirectly. Yeah, remember all those other people, those mysterious other people who always exist and said opinions, but none of us cool people now hold the opinions of? Those people said Forgiven was toxic and he'd have problems in teams and, his ego would get in the way of the team concept and he'd make demands that were too much of his teammates. Well, that all turned out not to be true and he was a really good player now and his team's top of the league. Well, you know what, Monty? Give someone long enough and they will show their true face to you because now we're right back where we started again. The carousel has completed its course and we're back to Forgiven's a really good player, but on a team with some players who maybe are weak and haven't shown their full potential. And hey, as everyone on the team is committed to winning and, people are saying like he's going to break up the team because of his ego. Is that you? So, Forgiven, welcome to Spring 2040. I mean 15. Welcome back to the show, Forgiven. How's it going? Okay, this is episode 42 of Summoning Insight. I'm Thorin, regular host here. For this week, I guess you could say I'm like an honorary member of Team Liquid because of, I just finished up wiping CLD's blood off my hands. Like, tears have been shed. They know now that mistakes were made and things have to be better next year. But for right now, all they can do is sit in silence. And I'd acknowledge that I was the victor in our battle, and I made good points. They were actually outpicked at the argument stage of the pick ban phase. Like, they made bad decisions there. They went with the wrong thing. They knew they should have done it better. They should have scouted the sort of things I'd say, but they didn't, unfortunately. And so it was a comprehensive victory for me. And, okay, my co-host here, like, listen, Monty, I know that once, one of the problems they say is that when beautiful women first start to date, like men with a lot of money and a lot of class, they get a taste for the finer things, Suddenly, it's not enough to go back to their the guy next door, that cute guy they met in the library, they bonded with. Now, they want, like, fine wines, they want to be driven places, they want to be serenaded, they want to be, part of the hoi polloi, Monty. They want to be the glitterati, if you will. So I realized with this incredibly low budget production, that you're probably feeling like, do I have to go back to this life? Like, I mean, I didn't even start this show. Okay, this is episode 43 of Summoning Insight. I'm Thorin, usual host here, and I thought I'd let everyone in, by the way. I actually had one of the best days of my life, one of those days where everything goes right. It's satisfying, because in one day, I got to see a best of 5 between Unicorns of Love and SK, and that went just the way I wanted it to. And then I got to see a best of 5, I got to see a CSGO final between the team that I like versus a team of like heathens, just beasts from Eastern Europe who just don't use any strategy, and then the beasts won, obviously. And then I got to close out the night with a wonderful series between Tip, Team Impulse, and TSM. So it's been a great week for me, very memorable. I'll probably look back on this as sort of like the heyday of my life. Like, I feel like once I've hit this zenith, I can't ever really go to those heady heights again, I'll chase that dragon, as it were, much like Tip. And everyone's webcam's gone off, so that's already fucked right there. Can everyone turn them back on, please? I can't be fucked saying all this again. I'm not saying all that shit again. Does everyone turn their webcam on?
No, it says group webcams are unavailable at the moment. Please try again later. All right, I'm back.
It's working now.
Okay.
It gave me an error message.
There we go.
Right, don't say anything inappropriate, because I'm not fucking restarting. That's the start of the show right there. Everyone watching on stream now, I'm not fucking cutting that. So anyway, yeah, so it was a wonderful day. I even fucked up the joke about chasing the dragon. It fucked everything up, money. Anyway, ignore that. Nothing got fucked up. It was a wonderful week. Everything went as it should have gone. All of my philosophies were borne out. And so, speaking of wonderful weeks where all of our philosophies are borne out, things go the way we want them to, I know for Monty it was another great week as well, and he's been really looking forward to this episode.
Yeah, of course. All the TSM fans I know have been looking forward to it too, because they just say that that we're going to be super salty and they can't wait to hear us. So thank you for watching.
Yeah. Have you ever noticed that it's quite interesting? I've noticed this phenomenon, Monty. It doesn't just apply to TSM fans, but generally it's whichever the biggest fan base is in a game. What they do, right, is... In fact, I've actually always given the analogy, it's sort of like what America as a country does culturally, which is if America's the best by far in a game, okay, they're just dominating some sort of sport or game. If any other country complains or says like, oh, it's bullshit, they're always like, oh, you're going to cry, are you? Oh, get wrecked, idiot. But then if America loses in a game or isn't as good at something, they're like, it's unfair. They have all like advantages and stuff, and we don't even like try that hard and stuff. It's like that's exactly what fans are like, right, Monty? Because if they're right, if TSM fans are right, they're like, oh, get wrecked. You got shit on. You don't know anything. But then if TSM loses, they're like, come on, be respectful. What's with all the trash talk? You're so disrespectful, man. Like, oh, okay, it's interesting how that double standard works there. So anyway, even though, by the way, Monty, TSM have won, and we are entirely wrong here, I've started out the show attacking fans already, so it's off to a good one. You've triggered me already, fans. I'm already going. So anyway, I'm here, Monty's here, and our guest this week. So I've obviously pulled another classic Thorin move, haven't I? It's like on the shore where we have to sort of eat humble pie, Monty, and get wrecked. You have to bring in that flak. I've given the analogy before. You have to bring in the flak to draw some of the attention and some of the natural hatred away. So I was like, right, well, it better be like a woman, someone who doesn't flaunt their sexuality, at least I hope not. And thirdly, it should be someone who's like intelligent, because those are the 3 things that quite frankly disgust the modern male in our society. So speaking of which, our guest this week is Kelsey Moser. Hello. Okay, this is Summoning Insight episode 44. I'm Thorin, and I consider myself like one of the good guys in esports, Monty. Like, I'm not one of those scumbags. There's a lot of them out there who, you have to worry, like, will they change their opinions and just claim they thought one thing? Do they change overnight? Good week for me in some senses. Like, we're going to talk later about Korea, and I feel like, that all worked out the way I wanted to see things work out. That just resolved a little philosophical difference between the two of us. This week, actually, it's you that's been under attack, Monty. Like, we take turns with this. Like, we agreed when we were forming our evil plan as to how we would infect Western esports with like an underlying subliminal bias about TSM not in fact being the best when that's self-evident that they are. When we were discussing our plan to do that, Monty, a long time ago, because this was planned from the get-go. This is like the Illuminati, we started this in like Bavaria in like the 1877 or something. But whenever we started this, we literally said like, we can't both be hated at the same time. I mean, occasionally the plan didn't work. Sometimes we were hated at the same time. What we have to do is we have to take turns, like whenever you're beloved, that's when I have to have my moments when I draw the attention in a negative way. You're drawing the positive attention, I'm drawing the negative, and then it has to flip. Every now and then we have to have a pole reversal, and then you say something glib which is taken without context, like essentially suggesting that all of Europe is just dog shit and not even worth the time to flash in front of your eyes. I think your phrase was, you'd rather look at a wall with nothing happening on it and then go blind, then watch the LCS finals. But,
I'm pretty sure that was verbatim what I said.
Yeah. It's much like those Jack Dilemma segments. It all happened, guys. So, but now I'm beloved on the other hand, now I'm back in everyone's good graces. It's all going well. So I think, from experience, I feel like this is just the way it's going to be forever. I think it was set now. I don't have to worry anymore. I'm in the clear. I think you're in the hot seat again, and you have to prove yourself to you have to listen, Monty, you just have to tone things down and kind of like, kind of work on being a bit more likable. And when you do that, then you'll be loved as I am.
Yeah, see, it's really a good cop, bad cop relationship, except because the community has the memory of a goldfish, we can actually switch good cop and bad cop roles constantly.
Okay, this is episode 45 of Somebody Insight. And I'm your host, Thorin. Coming into this week, I don't know if it's a mixture like exhaustion from all these CS events I'm doing at the moment, Monty, or just how hectic the world of esports has gotten, but I feel like it's actually gotten to me. League of Legends, I think I'm finally starting to be broken under the wheel, Monty, because on the wheel rather, because I was actually thinking coming into this week's episode, like, has there really been that much just happened? Like, it's MSI isn't until next week. Is there even that much going on? And then I remembered, oh wait a second, there's the final of the best league in all of China that happened. That was the best of 5 final. There was a semi-final in LCK between two teams that composed of legendary players. And then I thought to myself, wait a minute, that's actually way more significant than most episodes that we've actually had in this show. But because LCS isn't going on much, it just didn't seem as exciting. But then also, here's the thing. I realized that fans now wouldn't even be able to relate to what I'm saying now. Like, I was joking there, Monty, as if they'd be like, yeah, who cares about LPL and LCK? Because they'd be like, are you out of your mind? Relegations was happening. Didn't you see? Like, what I've learned from this year, Monty, of League of Legends, is that if you just followed Twitter only, like imagine you were watching a sport like the NBA, okay, and you have all these people who say they're basketball fans, then you expect during the NBA playoffs, that's when it'd be going crazy, people would be like trending topics, and people like, oh my god, did you see the Thunder? Well, actually, the Thunder aren't in the playoffs this time, but the Spurs or the Warriors or someone, Instead, if people were only ever talking about like some lesser league, you'd be like, what's going on here? Well, if you only looked at Twitter this year, Monty, you would assume, like, say you were someone in the future who's digging up ancient history, and you find all these sort of like records in Nineveh or somewhere, and you're like, oh, is this how they lived? Oh, what's going on here? Then you would actually assume in League of Legends terms that Fusion were the most important League of Legends team in the North American region of like 2014 going into 2015. Like, everything's about Fusion and how excited people are about these incredible series that they keep playing, and backwards and forwards, and apparently they just have some of the greatest players ever. Like their jungler and their AD carry in particular, everyone seems to be incredibly enraptured with, because these seem to just have been legendary, kind of almost sort of like Tom Bunyan-esque figures, larger than life, capable of great feats, worthy of all of our attention within the sphere of this game, League of Legends. In many ways, probably put alongside this Eastern fellow called Faker, who also seems to be fitting into a similar sort of mix, And as a futuristic historian, this is how I would start to compose how they lived in those simpler times of 2014 and 2015. So, in your world, Monty, which I imagine quite removed from this, how's your week been? Okay, it's episode 46 of Summoning Insight. And, we start the episode out here. I don't know why. The sky at the moment in England, it's blue. I hear birds chirping. The sun kind of just warms me. It's not too warm. It's not too breezy, but it's just warms me to remind me that light is out there. The sun is there to warm me up. I was just thinking, what a great day it's been recently. I was thinking back through the great times that we get to live through in the human civilization, you know, like actually it was on thinking of some of the like important dates in history that really mean something to me and like kind of like sparked up a new era, you know, golden age, if you will. So on the 29th of May, Monty, in 1453, the fall of Constantinople took place. And even though it was the fall of like a great place, in many ways it's believed actually that this led to Greek scholars and texts being introduced to Italy, which actually then sparked the Renaissance period, which is an excellent period of the Enlightenment, of like human values becoming more appreciated and becoming like universally accepted, and art, literature, everything was sparking off. So this terrible event actually became something beautiful, you know. And then we skip forwards in time. You go to June 21st of 1788, the ratification of the United States of America's Constitution, instituting again rights for men. The ordinary person could dare to dream of, you know, a life of happiness and a wholesome future beyond like tyrants and this dark age of tyranny that had existed beforehand. Then we keep going forwards to more modern days, you know. June 5th, 1989, the tank man showed us all in the Tiananmen Square protests, Monty, that one man can stand against even a machine seemingly designed to conquer and destroy. He can show the world that no, you can stand up for what's right. The little guy can win even in that moment, you know. And then we go forwards again, you know, like November 9th, 1989. The Berlin Wall falls, Monty. That oppression is over. Finally, people will live in harmony. Europe will be united. And then we come to now. We come to the 8th of May, 2015. A lot of you were thinking, what happened on the 8th of May? I mean, MSI wasn't over by then. Like, that was last week. So 8th of May, 2015. The glorious EDG complete TSM's 1-4 record in the group stage, eliminating them in the group stage, ensuring a semi-finals in which North America will not be represented by a smog organization which through evil acts has somehow accrued titles, land, you know, fiefdom. But this didn't happen. They fell on that day, Monty. It was sort of like the last day when people could actually from their heart feel like there was something good in the world and things were possible. You know, I've always wanted to ask this question of you, Monty. Why don't bad things happen to good people? Like, in this particular sense, this, you know, finally good things happen to bad people. Like, this is the way it was supposed to be. So how are you doing, Monty? I imagine not quite as epic a thought as I had there, but I just wanted to share, you know, I wanted to share what I was feeling inside.
Yes, I conclude with your. I agree. I concur with your sentiments about the magnificence of this feeling that you're having right now. That truly, perhaps we're in another epoch of history right now.
Anything's possible now. Anything. I mean, listen, you can't spell euphoria without EU. So, you know. Also, Euphoria has a 4 in it, and that represents the 4 losses of TSM. So yeah, anyway, there's the etymology there for you. I'm breaking down words for you now, guys, as well as history, and, you know. So our guest this week...
Euphoria was actually the word invented by a time traveler for this exact situation. So the etymology is actually circular in terms of its meaning, because it was actually given to the Greeks many thousands of years ago by a time traveler from our realm.
See, I actually time traveled myself, Monty. I didn't want to reveal this now, but I actually went back in time because what happened is I got to the period of time when TSM had Amazing, this great jungler who was a wonderful player with a very wide champion pool, and I saw that they actually, you know, took the most amount of games off Samsung White, and I saw that they probably should have been in the final and been the second best team at Worlds, and I was threatened by this because, you know, my natural like dislike of TSM, and I secretly don't want them to succeed, you know, because for some weird reason that's the only team in the world that I don't have a reasonable opinion on. So I thought that, and I was scared. I was like, oh my god, if they go into another season with this guy and that amazing coach Lord Locodoko and Lost Boy and Bjerg, oh my god, and Bjerg, they'll probably just win Worlds next. Like, and I saw that, I heard that Samsung White was going to break up, so I was like, oh shit, I've got to do something, because otherwise TSM's probably going to win Worlds next. So what I did was I traveled forwards in time and I tried to see like what would happen in the next few months. And I saw the way it would unfold. Like, eventually they'd be capable of winning an IEM because of the breakup of the Korean exodus. Then I saw what would happen with the rise of China, and like, okay, now it's going to be like a real mix. Now TSM can win every event potentially, especially Worlds. So what I did is I traveled back in time, back to that period right after Worlds, and I found this like young challenger player who his career was going nowhere. His name was Thorin, and I said to him like, listen, we're going to get you into TSM. He's like, how could you possibly do that? Like, I'm nobody. I've never done anything in my career. And I was like, listen, you're Danish. You haven't accomplished anything yet. You've been in relegations. You're exactly who they'll come for. And I know this because I traveled back from the future, okay? And to prove it, I will now explain to you what we're going to do once you get into TSM. And he's like, okay, I'm all ears. Like, I'm not a very good player right now. I don't have a lot of experience. Like, what do I do? And I was like, listen, I handed him like a big folder, and I was like, this is all the info you need. Here's all the teams you'll play and what picks they like to choose. Here's where their pathing will be in games. So listen, I know you're not a very strong player. You're not a very good player. But all you have to do as your jungler is just look at the pathing. Just avoid where the enemy jungler is. Just know when he's going to turn up at this area. All you have to do is turn up and support this really good mid laner. And listen, they'll think you're a really good jungler. Look like you're like Bengi from the SKT era. You're just always in the right place at the right time. People will, as a result, naturally overvalue your ability, And he's like, okay, but won't that ever be exposed? Won't it ever fail at any point in time? I'm like, no, just stick with the binder. Just keep going with the binder. So he kept going. And at first he was worried, because he went to that first IEM, and actually Unicorns of Love was so crazy they didn't even do what I'd originally seen in the future. It turns out they actually have no plan. They just decide in the moment. So when he behaved differently, they did totally different stuff, and it didn't work for him. So he actually bombed this tournament completely. And I was like, listen, stick with the course. I promise you it will work. So the season came. As the season went, he learned how to use the binder, how to look at the pathing, how to just go and be in the right place. Never to do anything special, just to be in the right place with the right champion. He learned how to do this, Monty. And eventually, TSM won IEM. They won the NALCS, and he came into the MSI. And then he got to like the last sort of section of the chapter. And then it said there, like, MSI. And on the day before MSI final start, as was his tradition, he opened up the binder and he went to turn the page, and there was nothing there. And he kept turning pages. He was turning frantically, and there was just nothing there. And at the very end, it just said, in letters, in this sort of a crimson kind of coloured ink, it just said, TSM will fall. And then he was like, what does it mean, though? What does it mean? And then it just said, play it your own way. And then this is what happened, Monty. See, it was all my plan. I took this to the next level. It was so in-depth, so intricate, the way I caused this downfall. And then I just sat back, and I just enjoyed. And it turned out all Danish people just crumble under such pressure. So that was just my little anecdote there about one time that I used time travel for good. Sort of like Quantum Leap, I had to go back and right a wrong that had happened in history. So I guess that would make Monty like Ziggy or whoever that guy was called in that show. So anyway, this is quite a delayed one, but we're going to get to our guest now, Monty, who's been sat here for 8 minutes listening to all this shit. Okay, this is episode 47 of Summoning Insight. And sometimes, Monty, you probably wouldn't know this, but I sometimes worry about our place in the world. Like, will the TSM hordes succeed? Will they storm the castle, overrun us, and bring down the last sort of remnants, holding together some kind of a civilization within the world of League of Legends? Will the Koreans just dominate to an extent that NA and EU are irrelevant? And then, will they dominate to it's irrelevant? Imagine such a scenario, Monty, and we have to almost like pander to people who just follow those regions and naively think they're really good. That would be a terrible world. I don't want to live in that world, mate. So I'm just saying, like a post-apocalyptic sort of vision there. That'd be a nightmare. But if such things were to happen, I wonder, like, would our show would it even have a place in the community anymore, Monty? Because it's a well-known fact that I don't actually do any of this just for money or, I just do it because I love to do this sort of show and give back to the little people who helped me on their shoulders. I was lifted up to this godlike status, I believe it's referred to as. But one of the reasons why I like to do it is because I need the show to be relevant. I need it to have a key place in the community, Monty. So I was thinking to myself, every now and then I get worried, like maybe we're losing our touch. Maybe I read Reddit and I read all these great analyses from different random Redditors, and I'm like, people are so on the money now, they're so on the pulse of what's going on, that actually probably we don't have a service that we can even offer the community anymore. But then every now and then it's like the good Lord who oversees Riot, whoever he may be, Morello, I don't know, reaches down and just his force is felt in the world, And he lets the world know that summoning insight will always be necessary. And what happened here, Monty, was amazing. Because I was thinking to myself, oh no, EDG's won MSI. Like, Monty's whole thing is he knows all about Korea. He's only just started learning about China. He even admits he doesn't watch all the Chinese. Oh my God. What happens now if China Talk becomes the new powerhouse? What if this is like the turning point, not just for the Chinese region, but our show starts to decline, okay? He's not even a coach of like a bad LCS team anymore. What foothold would we have? And so then the good Lord himself, in this case, it's not even really... If it was a god, it would probably be like the god of chaos. So maybe it would be like Murphy, I guess would be the Western version. Murphy came along and he said, well, you know what? The Chinese region's just won and the Chinese team's just won. So why don't I just mix up all the players and then let's just start all over again from zero. And so if you go into the Chinese region now, which is just placed first in national competition, the team that just placed first, all the Chinese experts were telling me this is the best version of EDG ever. This might be the best Chinese team ever. Now doesn't even have the same players playing for it. They've removed core members. They're playing guys who like couldn't even get onto Blaze in the first team. Like the whole thing's gone to shit, Monty, which is perfect because within that chaos, we will enter and we will reassert a level of control and kind of we will enforce a prism of order over this world, Monty. And again, your analytical skills will be required to make sense of this trying time we live in. Do you see the setup, Monty? Welcome to episode 48 of Summoning Insight. And last time, we've got a repeat guest here, Monty. So last time we had this show was way back in episode 26. Things were very different back then, Monty. It was on Gamers. Remember that? That was like a website that used to exist back then with a lot of League of Legends content and was doing great work, actually. And at the time, we had on Freeze when he was not actually in LCS at the time. He'd had all those issues in the challenger scene where he'd repeatedly tried to qualify with NIP. And people used to jokingly say, you know, like, oh, Freeze is cursed. You know, whoever he goes to somehow fails to get into LCS. Because actually, the joke is it extended beyond the NIP era. Back when he was in the previous team, what was it? Was it the Samurai in Jeans, I think was the one you were on, Freeze? That one failed to get in, but he actually got picked up by NIP at the time and got into the LCS. So then with NIP, he failed to get in, but then he got picked up now by Copenhagen Wolves. And so people told me about this curse that whenever anyone who's associated with Freeze professionally becomes cursed, and not only does Freeze get destroyed, but they get destroyed utterly as well for putting their faith in Freeze. So like many curses and like many kind of, you know, like many kind of Westerners who think that science and reason will prevail, Monty, and at the beginning of a supernatural movie, we're the fools, you know, because we're the ones like, huh, ghosts, they don't exist. And then as we close the lab door, you know, like the woman comes out the wall and kills us, because obviously that's like our payback for our haughty scientific chauvinism, Monty, is that we're the ones who get killed by the supernatural forces. So much like that, I thought, a curse? There's no such thing as a curse. And that was actually the last episode of Summoning Insight that was ever done for On Gamers. I was actually fired before we could even get to another episode. We went something like a month, our longest period, without a Summoning Insight episode. We had to totally rebrand the whole thing, form a company to actually produce Summoning Insight, have a legal battle over the very name Summoning Insight, finally secure it, start anew, and now finally, Monty, now that we've finally got in a position where, you know, now we've got like proper backing, you know, we're in a world where things are going well for us again, I thought, you know what, much like one of those movies where they never learn from their mistakes, okay, why don't we just play with fire again? Why don't we hold a seance saying that we don't believe in supernatural forces and actually challenge the ghosts to destroy us completely for no reason other than just, you know, haughty, you know, chauvinism for science. So let's prove once and for all that there is no curse whatsoever.
See, you have nothing left to lose, however. You've already lost it all. You've gone down to the darkest depths. So I assume this means that I'm going to be the one fired from OGN.
Maybe.
We will see what happens.
Why? You don't believe in curses, right, Monty?
Of course not.
No, exactly. So there's no problem there. Let the movie begin. Now now on this ancient burial ground that we're having this particular show on, as we invert the cross and begin the show by challenging the devil and saying the Candyman's name 3 times, our guest this week is Freeze, as I built up there. Hi, how are you doing, Freeze? Okay, it's episode 49 of Summoning Insight. I've been out there to Los Angeles, La La Land, Monty, near Hollywood, and, you know, The secret to having integrity, Monty, is that it's actually something that everyone
Please
says
tell
they
me.
want, Monty. Everyone claims they want to have integrity, right? But the real secret to integrity is because it's such a valuable commodity. Well, in this world that we live in, Monty, the whole point of valuable commodities is to sell them at their highest price. So I waited a good sort of 14, 15 years. I was out there. I could never be bought at any price, Monty. I was the guy who, listen, I did it for the love of it. I just did it because I wanted to achieve something, to do something meaningful, something tangible in this life, to express myself, to get by, to have a crust of bread here and there, some water to drink from, to keep my soul nourished so that the body could continue and the spirit was willing, Monty. And then what I did was, then I had like a free auction that took place in a private sort of pit, and these shadowy figures came forth, and I had them bid on my soul. And in fact, there was some sort of creature that was stood there with sort of like in the Egyptian afterlife where they weigh your heart against feathers to see like the weight of the soul, And actually, because I'd built up this incredible cachet, it seemed like I was the guy who couldn't be bought. That also forced people to bid higher and higher, and thinking that I would never accept any offer, they allowed themselves it almost became a challenge for them. Could they buy the man who would never sell the world? And then actually, I've got to admit, they put up some really nice figures. So eventually, like a smart businessman, I cashed in completely. And oh, wait a second, I'm just getting a call on my HTC. No, actually, that part, I haven't gone to that level quite yet, but I just went to LA to do some interviews. And also, that's the great excuse, Monty. I was like, oh, I guess I'll just have to come to LA and sneak in the back door and get all those Cloud9 interviews. I guess what you could say, Monty, is if I was Nocturne, I guess you could say I farmed a lot of creeps when I was in LA. See what I did there?
So does this mean that by selling your soul that you finally got Medios to bury the hatchet off of your offensive tweets that prevented you from actually interviewing the members of Cloud9?
By offensive tweets, you mean a tweet to St. Vicious that said ha 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 ILY. I know wars have been started over less, Monty. Bar fights. I realized I should probably issue an apology for my incredibly offensive behavior. See, actually, Monty, what's great is, of all the things that I've been told I was unprofessional over, that's got to be like the most innocuous, least offensive thing. I say things more offensive than that, like in every single segment of this show, Monty.
So in contrast, in answer to my question.
Well, here's the thing.
Has the hatchet been buried between you and Medios? The fans, Duncan, they want to know.
I don't know whether the hatchet's been buried. Like, there was never really a hatchet from my side. It's more like I offered him a drink of water and it balanced out all that salt. And now he's just a well-hydrated, electrolytically balanced young man who is a world-class jungler. Well, okay, let's not go that far. It didn't go quite that well, Monty. He's a good jungler. He's a good NA jungler. Okay. No, here's the thing. Here's the real secret, Monty, if you think about it, is that, HTC, Cloud9, they won the bidding auction. They got to buy that soul that was worth so much, Monty. But actually, one of my favorite comic books, a classic in the genre, is in the comic book Hellblazer, which is about John Constantine, who's kind of a wheeling dealing magician. It's a DC Comics Vertigo production, and he's a guy where he kind of has the gift of the gab, and he knows a bit of magic and has a bit of nous about him. There's a really classic book called, I think it's called like Dangerous Habits, and in this one he actually manages to win out in a desperate situation. By what he does is he summons all the different lords of hell. There's three to four different lords of hell who have different dominions. And the secret is he summons them all separately and agrees to sell his soul to each of them separately. So they all do it. Therefore, actually, when one of them comes to claim it, like they all come at once, and then there's like a war between them, and the only way they can agree to sort of like not tear hell apart is to just agree like none of them will take his soul. So he's actually beaten them. That's why I actually did Monty. This is what people didn't realize, okay? Because not a lot of people probably kept track, but I'd already sold my soul to Alpha Draft before I sold it to HTC. So actually they didn't know it, but there was no soul left to give, Monty. Like you can't grow a new soul within 1 week. As I know you found out, like every time you come back from those Riot events like Worlds and All Stars, you have to like, you're sort of bedridden for a while. They have to put like IV and fluids back into you. Someone has to come and whisper like Gaelic poetry into your ears, and kind of that. Eventually, they coax forth that soul again after you've kind of like fed the flyers.
Well, the nice thing about living in Korea is there are actually a very high number of shamans. So it's actually very easy once your soul departs for a while for you to just go to a shaman here in Korea, and they will usher it back into your body. So considering you're going to be in Korea the next couple of weeks, we can go see one together, and maybe this process will be a little bit easier for you.
Yeah. If it works out, I've got a plan. When Dade finally finishes his play in China, I think we need to desperately take him on money, because he literally sold his soul for money, and I don't even know what's going on there. He's just like, he literally is a shadow of his former self. He's nothing now. He is a shell that it was Dade. He's not even the king of spring anymore, money. That nickname earned over a whole 2 springs no longer even works. Believe it or not, it doesn't have to happen every time. But don't worry, I'm pretty sure Uzi will go to the finals of Worlds this year. That one will never be broken, okay? All the records are there.
Wow. OMG, the big return, huh?
Yeah.